Welcome to Juniper Level Botanic Garden, home of Delights Nursery. My name is Kevin Stevens. I'm the lead grower here for the nursery. And we're going to be going over some container planting ideas today, but more so perennialization containers where they can overwinter in our zone. We are in an 8A zone. So all of the plants that we have that we're going to be incorporating into this will be able to overwinter in the exact same area. You wouldn't have to move it inside and outside. So we got to remove the tropicals, we have to remove some of the bigger plants, but we want to kind of start with an assortment of different plants. The biggest thing we need is a large pot with a drainage hole in it. You have to have something that drains. If not, you will regret it. It's going to fill up with water, and that's going to be the end of that. Second off, I have a lot of people who try to put rocks in the bottom of these containers. It's an old wives' tale. Nothing happens from it. The only thing that you're going to get is if it's actually tipping over or falling. But if you look at the amount of soil we're going to add, it's not necessary. It just kind of muddies up the very bottom with a lot of fine grit that'll end up going to the bottom and creating more of a sludge layer with those rocks. Something I don't really recommend. On top of that, we have some different ideas of always what we want to do with any container, in my opinion, is we have our thrillers, which are going to be your centerpieces and everything. And then we have more of the filler plants, which are going to fill in the ambiance of the sides. And then we have some plants like these that are actually going to be spilling more over the sides of the plants. So keeping with that thought, I looked at a few different options and I decided we're going to work with some hibiscus and some liatris, which is the cardinal flower. And the reason I have two of them here is basically these are two of the same cultivars, but they're going to grow completely differently. This one, after a year or two, is going to create more of a bush effect. So you always want to be very cognizant of what you're actually planting in your container so as not to overgrow it. So we're, as pretty as that flower is, we're not going to use this one today. We're going to go with more of a single hibiscus that's going to be nice and tall. It'll be flowering probably in the next week or so as well. And same thing with cardinal flower. When I started looking at some of our selection, these are both different styles of cardinal flower. And then you start kind of pairing which is going to go better together. And after looking at it over, putting the two together has a nice contrast to everything. So I always try to start with the center of everything that we're going to be doing first and then kind of work my way out from there. I did think about coming up. Grasses are a really good idea for centerpieces too. This will get about 36 inches tall and it pretty much stands straight up. So it gives you a nice contrast if you don't want to use something that's going to be more of a flower, or something like the hibiscus, and this is going to pretty much die winter dormant. So everything else is going to be evergreen, but that's going to come up and down as a centerpiece. So if you wanted something a little bit longer, we're looking for something that has a little bit more evergreen appeal to it. And once again, I just brought some different options so that we can kind of mix and match and do some things with. We are just going to load this up with soil. The dirt we use here is a pine bark mix with 10% compost. We source that from Pacific Organic, which is a soil company about an hour away from us here in Raleigh. Any kind of potting soil will work. I always recommend more of a well-draining mix with everything, because that way you don't have a buildup in the pot. A lot of cocoa coir, a lot of mosses, peat moss, etc. is going to hold a lot more water. And as you can see by the amount of soil we're putting in a big pot, it's not going to go anywhere when it's done. So once again, all the rocks in the bottom are more mess than they're worth. And we're going to fill this all the way up to about 3 or 4 inches from the top. And then that way we can start incorporating some of our plants in it. And just to even get an idea before you do anything of kind of what you want going on. So looking over everything, I know I definitely want to use the salvia. This is going to be the Diane. It's a Texas sage salvia, so it's definitely hardy to the area. Beautiful purple flowers with it. And the agastache was the other one that really caught my eye. I thought about going into the snapdragon, which you can use as well, but I really like the contrast of the flowers being very similar yet different with these two. And as in some spillers, we're going to be running a phlox, which is a nice variegated phlox. It'll have bluish purple flowers as well. The contrasting between almost the yellow margin with a lot of the purple really gets it to pop. So we want to start thinking about some contrasting colors with everything you're doing. And Tradescantia. This one's really nice. It'll help spill and fill the pot at the same time. So what I'm looking for is something that's going to be a little bit higher. These plants are going to be probably around 20 to 24 inches, about the same with this. So it'll have a nice high contrast. These should probably climb to about 3.5 to 4 feet. So that's kind of the way we're looking at arranging everything. And like I said, we can use some grasses, you can use some bushier plants, but you got to kind of watch what your space is going to be. So we will just get some of these popped out of the pot. And I'm not a giant proponent on breaking things up. I will loosen it up just a little, but a lot of people really kind of mash up the root system. And what I found is you break more roots than you actually dealing with. Just nice and easy and just a little bit. And as you see, the roots are already falling off. So we don't want to really jostle it too much, in my opinion. And same thing here, just kind of loosen it up so it's nice and sits nice and tight. Mm-hmm.
Wet the roots first and then put them in the pot, or do you think it doesn't matter if the roots are wet?
All these were watered earlier today, but it really wouldn't matter because afterwards we have to water in everything to make sure there's no crevices or bubbles or anything that's going to be left.
Okay. I didn't know there was an advantage to water.
Not necessarily, but you definitely don't want to start off with a dry plant at all. And then usually what I'll do is when I get the center kind of set where I'd like it, throw some dirt around it to kind of hold that center position in. And then we're going to work pretty much on the sides of the plant. And the same thing, you can kind of start getting an idea of what we're looking to go after. And it's totally up to interpretation. There's no right or wrong way to do it whatsoever. The only thing I try to do is have a lot of contrasting colors that are going to work really well. Some things that are going to stay a little bit more evergreen throughout the year, such as the salvias. And some of these, what we're going to do is we're actually going to divide and break up. So you can take one pot and get 2 or 3 plants to help you go around the edge to fill it in a little bit faster. Same thing here. Just a little soil just so it all holds itself together. And a lot of plants that can be easily propagated are good in containers. That way, if anything ever happens to them, you can just break off a piece or the piece just breaks and you are able to go ahead and reset that right back in the pot. It's also nice to use things like this when you're trying to fill spaces because you can root these cuttings really, really quick and easy. And then you can go ahead and place them in to help fill it out a lot faster. Okay. Now we're going to work with some of these. And this is a phlox that our taxonomist Zach Hill actually found in the garden as a sport, and we have patented and brought it to market. So we're just going to look for some nice fill spaces in here. And you can get that nice contrast between that cream yellow on the leaf and really working into where that purple is. And after looking at everything, I think I'm going to go with the Spanish Snapdragon because it'll be a nice filler in the back. And this way it'll give it nice texture all the way around. And then once I kind of get everything set, we're just going to take it and nice and easy fill in all the extra spaces that we kind of left open. And once again, everything in here is going to be completely okay to overwinter. It will perennialize next year. A lot of times when you are doing things in containers, we want to use a 2-zone system. So if we are in zone 8A currently, we want to use plants that are around 6A or 6B. That way they don't freeze the same way because they're used to more of a cooler climate. If you start using plants that are 8A in a planter, second we hit the winter, they will all go and die. It's way too cold on their root systems. You can do some fancy things like trying to get some blankets around them, wrap them up. But in the very end of the day, it's just easier to go with plants that are going to be a little bit more hardy and a little bit more cold hardy. And that's kind of really what we're looking for with this. They'll be just fine because all of these are rated to 9A. So it's like, yes, exactly. It's a 6A to a 9A, so it's going to be your summer versus your winter months. So you want to always find things that are going to be very compatible with what you're trying to plant. And as you can see, it was not that hard. We're going to have this nice spill over the front in about 2 to 3 weeks. Everything is going to kind of grow up in the back and to the sides of everything, as well as the cardinal flowers and the hibiscus should start flowering within about the next 2 weeks. So it'll give that nice pop of color. Once everything kind of grows up, I would be expecting the agastache and the salvias to be just about the same size as this lower lobelia is now. The snapdragon probably close to the same, about 18 to 20 inches. The Tradescantia. It's going to eventually fill out all sides of the pot because it's kind of a runner. I know you've seen this in probably the gardens where it just takes off and it goes forever. And the same thing here with the phlox. This is just nice. It's going to spill over and start working into the sides. So the last thing I'm going to do is I have some NutriCoat, which is the fertilizer that we use here. You can use any kind of pelletized fertilizer, but we are going to give it a little bit of a start with everything. And I want to add this before we water in anything else. And the way I like using this is I'm going to put just a little bit down. And then I'm going to actually add a little bit more soil on top of it. And that helps it from running off the sides of the pot. You could use a liquid fertilizer. You could use anything from a big box store. And really, they're all just about the same, especially when you're looking. I would look for something with a container. I would not use something for tomatoes as a for instance, though. We're not going to want to do that. So then the final step at this point is I'm just going to take, like I said, just a little bit of that soil and kind of just cover up where that fertilizer is so we don't end up losing it over the edge in a rainstorm or something else. And this way it'll start settling into the actual media that we're using. And then the very last step that we are not going to be doing here, but I will have to do today, is we're going to water it in. I'm going to wait, and this is going to live right in our sales area by our tropical greenhouse. So it'll be here for people to see if they ever want to come down and see exactly what it looks like in a year. So that's kind of the idea of having this. We're going to do a similar thing next week on Saturday with more of a shade container. So it'll be very similar. If you have a pool, a patio, something, this would be the way you'd want to go. If you have a balcony on a north side, it's going to be very shady. Next week we'll have an episode where we're going to go ahead and do that kind of container gardening as well, with some ideas of what works really good there. So with that being said, is there any questions?
How many plants do you typically put in a container? I mean, I know it depends on the size of the container, but
It really just depends on what you're looking for. I would, and the size of the container. In a container bigger like this, I would recommend things, like I said, that I could break off, and the things that are going to run real fast. But I would usually probably put 3 to 5 plants in for sure. I'm usually trying to have something that's going to be in the center, which we call the thriller. This is the flower show. This is why you're looking. And like I said, a lot of times grasses work really well for that too. So you could have a whole nother option where they're going to come up. They'll have that feather plume on them. So these are 2 different things that I definitely like using for more of a sun container situation. But I would suggest you also want to keep it simple. I wouldn't go over maybe 6 plants, but I would space them out. Sometimes maybe using 2. You can divide some of these in half, so you can space those out that way. Or, as we talked about, just propagating off here and then placing those.
may I write down the names of the markers?
Sure can. You're quite welcome. And once again, there's no right or wrong way to do anything. It's just an interpretation and an idea. I was looking to have something more contrasting between purple and yellow. I like contrasting colors a lot. When I started looking at using a different style green cardinal flower, as you can see, it would get lost in everything. So you have a lot of decisions to kind of make when you're thinking about it. And that would be the biggest step. You would want to really come up with something. Even if you took everything together and started placing them where you'd want them in a wagon like we have here, it gives you a good idea. And there's no right or wrong way, it's all in the eye of the beholder. You're quite welcome. We appreciate everybody coming out to the open house. Please help yourself in the gardens. Take a long walk, long stroll. It is going to be hot. Thank God you guys are here earlier, because by 2 o'clock, I would be in the shade gardens only. So our sun garden is across the way. I would probably go to that one early first. Shade gardens will be a lot nicer after 2 p.m. We do have a lot of sales. We're doing a 20% off sale, and I have some things marked down as much as 50% off for our summer sale this time around. Some of our sales are available online as well, but it is first come, first serve, and we do sell out very fast. So I would expedite that, especially whenever we have a sale going on.
Thank you very much. Thank you.